One major customer that we have that I think MEO is perfect for is maritime business. I mean, essentially what best to provide, good latency to a user that is really in the middle of nowhere, right? There is no other chance. And I think O3b MEO has proven that maritime is really a great business that we can provide service for, and mPOWER is just bringing this to a new level. We're able to offer much more throughput and much more locations.
Yeah, I mean, cruise, that's certainly one of the jewels in the SES crown, right? There's nothing out there that can compete with O3b today, and much less when we can do multiple gigabits to a vessel with O3b mPOWER, and it's a fantastic position to be in for that segment. Merchant shipping is very different from that, though, right?
Right. It's the same principle. If you have a boat out on water, there's not really a lot of other connectivity options except for satellite. So when SES built this multi-orbit strategy, it doesn't necessarily mean that a single customer takes advantage of both orbits, but when you look at the whole maritime industries, you can see the advantages of one orbit versus the other. So for example, for shipping vessels and fishing vessels, they need a very basic level of connectivity, but they go all over the globe. So the wide coverage, continuous coverage is really important, and GEO nails that. But those customers who have a few crew on board are nothing like a cruise with thousands of people on board. Then they need the really high throughput that you can get from MEO. They need low latency. Now they're making FaceTime calls from home. They're not just waiting till they get to port.
They're working from boat.
They're working
from boat instead of working from home.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's really like a big enabler, right? So connectivity now is, at least for developed world, is really a must. So I think that for cruises to grow, really to use internet like the one we offer for O3b MEO and mPOWER is really the way to get more customers to go on cruises, and especially all ranges of generations. That they will want to be there,
right?
And even work remote. That would be great.
Yeah, and you mentioned like the different generations coming onto cruise now. You can look at the flexibility of O3b mPOWER. When we first signed the contract, maybe they expect a certain user profile, and we build most of our connectivity today where there's more forward throughput, right? There's more data heading towards the terminal than we get back. From a user point of view, they might call it the download speed, right? But today with cruise, we're actually seeing, well, there's a higher demand for the forward throughput, the data that comes off the ship and back to land, as people are now uploading all of these HD videos, HD photos, like I mentioned, the FaceTiming. So the flexibility of O3b mPOWER lets cruise operators see our usage reports and actually see how the demand is changing. And if their forward to return throughput isn't ideal for their customer experience, then they have the ability to contact SES and actually get that adjusted and stay within the same contract. That's a flexibility we didn't have before.
And if I could expand on that, that's a really key point, because the, say, 1-to-1 ratio forward to return is not something that others can provide.
Right.
If you look at the existing LEO constellations, even if you're getting 300 megabits down, you might only get 30-40 megabits maximum on the return.
Imagine thousands of customers on a cruise ship sharing 20 megabits.
Yeah, so that's why I think it's really important to understand. And even if you go to larger terminals on those LEO constellations, does not provide you the additional throughput. That's really critical. And there are other applications that also require lots of return capability. ISR is another example in the government. So as those types of applications that require closer to a 2-to-1, 1-to-1 kind of ratio, the mPOWER constellation is a really good solution for that.
Yeah, and what you're saying, I think it sort of leads into the fact that there's no single solution for everything, right? It's sort of the right orbit, the right solution for whatever that particular problem is that you're trying to solve for your customer. When we have someone come to us, we don't tell them, oh, you have to do O3b. Or you have to do GEO. It's, well, what's your problem? What are you trying to solve? What are the levers that you're trying to pull to accomplish your goal as a business? Again, having two orbits allows us different solution sets, which are key. And that's, I think, particularly exciting for us.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, to me, it's like the flexibility, right? So the technology, which is the part I'm working more, is really to give you as much flexibility as possible for the customers, for solutions that you can offer for those problems, right? So in that sense, having multi-orbit or having satellites that can really provide a bunch of new features, different capabilities is really helpful to cover those needs.
Something that our customers have told us a big part of their future strategy is cloudification, right? So moving more of their workflows into the cloud, making the cloud even part of their network architecture. The automation and orchestration of their networks is occurring in the cloud. So that's one of the reasons we've partnered with Microsoft Azure and Amazon Web Services, is to make our network look more like the customer's network, so we can interoperate, we can just blend seamlessly as any part of their cloud strategy. A big part of that is building gateways in partnership with Microsoft, for example, so that some of our O3b mPOWER gateways are actually co-located with Microsoft Azure data centers. This brings customers a private, secure, one-hop connection from wherever they are in the world to their preferred cloud providers.
It's hard to have a discussion with a client these days, especially in the enterprise world, especially in the resources sector, whether it's oil and gas or mining or whatever, that doesn't involve a cloud question, right? I mean, it's always in there. It's how do I make my network look the same no matter where I am in the world, right?
Well, I think that's important because the cloud's not new. I'm not trying to say that this is a brand new technology that hasn't already been part of our lives for 5 or 6 years, but what customers are saying was, I couldn't get the cloud out to an oil rig in the middle of the ocean. I couldn't get the cloud to this remote mining site that's hundreds of miles from the nearest city. So I think that's one of the differences that the reach of satellite can bring to these industries.
It seems to me it's essentially a response to what customer needs.
There are the customers that might be in the different segments, whether it's maritime segment, the aero segment, government segment, that need access to the cloud, whether it's at the edge or at the data center, but also the cloud service providers themselves, the Microsofts, the Amazons, that want to be able to do connectivity. These are products that we're actually looking at providing as part of the future. And another element of that, of course, comes into when you talk about the cloud, your services need to be automated. So a lot of the work that's being done right now as part of the mPOWER in terms of service fulfillment, the orchestration efforts that are going on, these are all going to be part of the product that we're going to provide to our customers in the future. So the way that we envision that, the customer's ability to actually be able to request additional capacity in an automated way by going onto a portal, being able to achieve that. Virtualization is another area that we are looking at. What are the kinds of things that we want to virtualize and put into the cloud? There are already elements that we're looking at putting into the cloud that will make it easier. At some point, I would love to see our modems, our gateways, those that we can actually put in the cloud to do that. So those are things that we're looking at. They're going to be a little bit longer term than the end of this year, but those are part of the future visions from the cloud perspective.